Does anyone else feel like fundamentalist Christianity changed your voice? Particularly for those of us socialized as women, sometimes I wonder what my real speaking voice sounds like. I have noticed that the way that my voice sounds depends on who I'm speaking to and what I'm trying to communicate. I was aware from a very young age that our voices as women were critiqued and that there was a certain tone and inflection that was acceptable and others that were not. You didn't want to be called shrill or anyone to say that your voice was annoying. So a very sweet, kind of sing-songy voice was preferred. I grew up in a church denomination where women were able to preach, prophesy, those sorts of things. It was still very, very common that women were not allowed to speak in Assemblies of God churches. I actually never attended an Assemblies of God church where women were allowed to serve on the board. But there were women who were called prophetesses in my churches, and so women would often speak. And I would always hear afterwards people complaining about the sound of a woman's voice. The same with women leading worship. When women would pray from the microphone, that sort of thing, there would always be criticisms of the sound of their voice. If it was too harsh or commanding or shrill, like I said earlier, all of those things were picked apart constantly. So of course I didn't want to be seen that way, and I think over time I just began to kind of just mold myself to what I knew would be acceptable. The funny thing about that is I never liked, like, the voice that I have now isn't one that I ever would have been comfortable with, because I have kind of like I don't know, you can describe it however you want, but I have that thing. I do that thing where I soften my voice and I speak very gently. But even as I was doing that when I was younger, I was uncomfortable with it. So I used to refuse to talk on the phone. For quite some time, I didn't like to talk on the phone because I didn't like how my voice sounded on the phone. I sounded very childlike, which would have been a preferred thing in my church, for women to sound childlike. But I was never comfortable with that. And so, in fact, when I first started making TikToks, I didn't really want to make videos because of the sound of my voice. And at this point in my life, I can't really afford like a vocal coach or some kind of therapy to work on my speech and kind of try to uncover, what does my voice really sound like? But I am curious. I would like to know. What does Carissa really sound like? I don't even know.